Hello and welcome to another Steelers Depot live stream. I am Alex Kozora. As always, joining me is Dave Bryan, SteelersDepot.com, for the next hour, our last pre-draft Q&A session before we find out what happens starting Thursday night and through the weekend, rounds 2 and 3 on Friday, rounds 4 through 7, and of course the undrafted free agent pool on Saturday. Back-to-back live streams. We did the one last week as we shifted our schedule around, but I wanted to keep us still on track, and of course, we'll talk about this before the draft to get your last questions in. So we'll do that, Dave and I, until 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Dave, as always, is joining me. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing better than last Monday. I'd like to apologize to everybody. Everything was the car was running fine until the engine blew up.
Quite literally, it sounds like, on your block.
Yeah, what happened was it come to find out that a car entering the subdivision veered off right there at the entrance coming off of the main highway there, and then took out the cable box and part of someone's fence on top of it there. So that was the reason why the cable, because we had lost both the internet and the television. And normally, I have Cox Cable out here. You have good up times and all like that. So if one goes down, it's rare that both of them go out at the same time. But lo and behold, as it turned out, had a vehicle come in, take out the cable box when we were, we were halfway through when the live stream last Monday there. So I apologize about that. I tried 18 different ways to try to get on and couldn't, and after the fact found out that that had happened. So hopefully no cars come screaming off the main highway today and take out the cable box.
Those Vegas streets just aren't safe out there. But glad you're back with us, Dave. A reminder, if you guys could like this video, subscribe to the channel. Of course, check out SteelersDepot.com. Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan speaking Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be covering that, of course, covering the draft during, before, after, every which way possible. Got a ton of things in store. My final Steelers mock draft will drop at midnight. Dave's will drop on Wednesday. On Thursday, we'll have a full draft packet of all the information from the last several months condensed into one post to bookmark throughout draft weekend to make you the most informed Steelers fan during the 2025 NFL Draft. As always, Super Chats are appreciated. We'll get you to the front of the line and guarantee your question will be asked and answered by Dave and myself. No obligation, but again, we appreciate them all the same. All right, Dave, let's get into the questions. Got a couple of questions from Lumberzack94. He says, "Evening, fellas. Thank you to the Steelers Depot team on another cycle of the draft. You're very welcome." He says, "Yin's knocked it out of the park as per usual, so thank you for your hard work and dedication." His question is, might be a weird question, but let's just say Sanders falls to the Steelers at 21 and they take him. Do you think that excludes them from possibly taking a quarterback in next year's draft in the first round? Predicting that is tough, Dave, but I think it's difficult to see back-to-back quarterbacks in the first round. It's happened occasionally, the Cardinals with Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray, but assuming a guy like Sanders would not be playing out of the gate, it's hard to envision that happening back-to-back years first round.
For everything that you just said, yeah, it's very hard to imagine that, especially if they do end up, signing Aaron Rodgers. You would think that if whoever the quarterback is, if they were to draft in the first round, doesn't get on the field much, it's hard to make a decision off of not seeing a guy play games. And as we've kind of noted over the years, it kind of feels like, at least you need about a 20-game sample to get a good idea, what indeed you have in a quarterback. So if they end up drafting, not even Sanders, but anybody, there's been a lot of dart conversation. I know Milroe's been thrown out there several times, and some people even think Tyler Shuck might be a first round guy. I'm not really thinking that, but stranger things have happened. And then you roll back to several years ago in the draft where you had all those guys we were talking about, potential going first round. And only one of those quarterbacks, Kenny Pickett, went in the first round. They went to the Steelers. But that's a long way of saying if they draft any quarterback in the first round this year, I would be quite surprised that they turned around the next year and drafted another one in the first round.
Same. Mike Adesso was asking if we celebrated 420 yesterday. I don't think either Dave and I did that. Celebrated Easter. That was my celebration yesterday. He says, "Do you know what time is the Tomlin and Khan presser and if it'll be aired live and where we can find it?" Like I mentioned earlier, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I forgot to check Steelers.com. I just saw the time. It should be aired on YouTube and maybe the Twitter X as well. Correct, Dave?
Yeah, usually that's the case. I still recognize 420 day. I just no longer participate in it.
They're in spirit. John Pennington says, hello, Dave and Alex. If the Steelers move down and the defensive linemen they want are off the board, should they draft a quarterback or pivot and take an offensive tackle or a left guard? I don't think offensive line will be in contention in the first round. Maybe in the later round, some depth I think is certainly needed. Dave and I talked about post-draft signing another veteran tackle I think would be smart and frankly necessary. It just depends. If you trade down and there's a run on defensive lineman, you're in a tougher spot. And who's all left? Is there a corner there? Is it Nicky Manwari, the safety from South Carolina? Is there a receiver that you really like there? Obviously, it gets into a lot of projection, speculation based on just what is available to you and what position groups may have come down and bumped down because of a run on defensive lineman. Is it running back and Travion Henderson? So it's just hard to answer those questions, John.
Yeah, and if you trade down, I mean, are you trading down to get maybe the same quarterback that's still on the board at 21? And where's your conviction if that's going to be your first round guy? And there's no guarantee that you get them however far you trade down. It seems like if once again, look, if this team ends up drafting a quarterback in the first round, there'll be a lot of celebrating. There'll be a lot of hand wringing, depending on who the player is and all like that. But if they have enough conviction to do that, you're never going to get another franchise quarterback through the draft if you don't end up drafting a quarterback. And at some point, it's a catch-22 type situation there. But I would. Another kind of long answer to the question there is, if they traded down in the first round, could I see them getting a quarterback in the first round? Is that basically what he's asking?
Yeah, I guess basically if Pittsburgh trades down, there aren't any defensive linemen there, where does Pittsburgh go is kind of my gist of the John Pennington question.
I wouldn't think they'd go quarterback in the first round. I think they would move down to, like you said, is there a corner? Is there... does a guy like Travion Henderson maybe come into play if you move down X amount of spots? Yeah, look, I mean, that's what makes this thing so hard with the quarterback thrown in there, and knowing that this team currently has no second-round pick, and knowing that they really need to address the defensive line. If you don't go defensive line in the first round and you don't pick up a second round pick or an early third round pick via a trade, that's a long wait in between 21 and 83, man. I mean, to address, let's say, per se, the defensive line, if you don't get one in the first round. So that's what makes this thing so difficult in my eyes, is all this quarterback chatter mixed with in your head, thinking that sure feels like defensive line should be the way they go, and then you mix in what other positions, if let's say the top three, if Nolan, Harmon, and Grant are all off the board at 21, and they don't want to go quarterback there, who's left on the board? What direction are we looking at? A wide receiver? Are we looking at maybe a Matthew Golden if he's still on the board at that time? Mm-hmm. Once again, Could a guy like Henderson come into play if the top two running backs are off the board? I'm with you. I don't think it'd be an offensive lineman in that first round pick. I don't think it would be an edge rusher. I don't think it'd be an inside linebacker. So what is that? I don't think it'd be a tight end. So where does that leave you? It leaves you like cornerback and safety potentially, right?
Sure. Or receiver or running back or all things that you mentioned there. I mean, we'll talk about quarterback more. I know it's been talked about endlessly by us and the local and national media, but I do go back to, if there is a quarterback they love, and if the reports are true that they really like Shedeur Sanders, they have first-round grades on Jackson Dart, and I think there's probably some nuance lost in some of those reporting, but if that is accurate overall, how do you justify not taking that guy if he's there at 21? If you believe he's a franchise quarterback, you need that guy. It trumps defensive lineman, despite that being, of course, an urgent need. Quarterback trumps everything. It's the most important position, not just in football, but in all of American sports. So if you feel that strongly about the quarterback position and those prospects in particular, how do you pass on that?
Yeah, I mean, once again, it goes back to conviction in a position and the position being such a position of need in the NFL, and you're not going to get the next one until you at least take a swing at one.
And we'll see what happens to Shedeur Sanders, a true wild card on draft day, and could end up in Pittsburgh. We'll see. Reminder to like the stream, would appreciate that. Appreciate you guys being here. And thanks to those who stopped by for my live mock draft last week. Went really well, a lot of fun. Had a great time hanging out with all of you guys. KR says, do you think the Steelers should extend Deshaun Elliott this offseason, and do you think they will? I would do it in a heartbeat. I think he was fantastic last year. Exactly what Pittsburgh needed as a strong safety complement to Minkah Fitzpatrick. Do I think they will? Yeah, I think there's a decent chance. I don't know how much the TJ Watt negotiations will kind of take up the energy of that, but you can walk and chew gum at the same time. This is not going to be, I think, an uber complicated contract to get done with Elliott. So, yeah, I think there's a good, decent chance of that.
Yeah, I think there's a decent chance of that as well, especially if you have, let's say, and we're still waiting to see what happens with Aaron Rodgers, but let's say Aaron Rodgers ultimately signs and it comes in, well under $25 million in cash in 2025, and let's say TJ Watt gets top of the market and you have an additional, I don't know, $17-18 million more in cash on top of the $21 million he's scheduled to make. There's still a little bit of a windfall there with Rodgers, depending on if Rodgers comes in at that 10 million or closer to 10 than he does, let's say 25 million. There's still some, and once again, this goes back to me thinking I'm fairly confident that this team's going to spend at least 100% of the league's cap number in cash this year, and I'll be surprised that number's not more along the lines of 102 or 103% of the cap number in cash. And if Rodgers comes in well under 25 million, and even if TJ Watt comes in top of the market at his position, there's still going to be, I think, a little bit of a windfall of a couple of, $4, $5, $6 million in additional cash that you could spend by extending Deshaun Elliott. So of all the players under contract right now that you look at potential, I'll say this: I think there's a much better shot that the Steelers extend Deshaun Elliott than I do George Pickens. Yeah. At this point. Who else? You can't do anything with Joey Porter or Keanu Benton until next year. We just wrote about earlier today about Jaylen Warren not signing his restricted tender yet, and that might be because he's kind of waiting to see maybe there's some contract negotiations going on with an extension there. But even if you extend Jaylen Warren, you're not going to dump a lot more additional 2025 cash above and beyond what his tender amount is at this point. So, yeah, I think if you go down a list of potential extensions this offseason, I think TJ Watt leads the list as far as candidates from that, and it's a short list overall. And I think there's a good chance that Deshaun Elliott could wind up getting an extension.
And Chris Boswell could have that deal modified where some money gets pushed up, which also makes sense, as you've talked about a couple times before. But Elliott, a candidate, a worthy one. We'll see what happens, but I certainly would be exploring that, having those talks, KR. A fellow Alex says, do you guys have confidence that Tomlin and Khan are good enough to find a franchise quarterback in the draft? Neither of those guys have any type of history of finding a franchise quarterback. Dave, you can lead off on this one. What's your confidence in Tomlin and Khan, the organization's ability to develop a quarterback?
Well, we haven't seen them do it yet, right? So
not Khan. Tomlin was there for Pickett. Khan,
right.
I think, gets a pass. Obviously, he was not GM.
Right, but we haven't seen him do it yet. So, look, you go around the league just go back in all these drafts. Go back in the last 5 drafts and look at the quarterbacks taken in the first round. Go back in the last 10 years, and it's not an exact science.
Sure. So do you have confidence? What is your degree of confidence if they draft a Shedeur Sanders or whoever at 21 to develop that guy?
With this year's class, not great.
But do you think the issue is the class issue or the team developmental issue, I should say?
I think you got to have a good quality of clay to work with.
Sure. But even if there was, just hypothetically, a talented prospect that needed work with the ability to reach a high ceiling, do you think this is the right organization with the right pieces to get that guy there?
I mean, there's so much that happens behind the scenes that we just don't know,
Mm-hmm.
In your heart of hearts, my gut way to answer that is no.
I get that. I think that's a lot of the instinctive thought. But I give Omar Khan a pass. He's a blank slate at quarterback in terms of drafting one. He was not in charge of drafting Kenny Pickett. He was not GM at the time. That was Kevin Colbert, which I think Pittsburgh made a lot of errors there, but I won't go into all relitigating that whole history. Tomlin obviously missed there in the organization, missed as a whole. But it's not just Tomlin and Khan. It's who's your OC, who are your quarterbacks coach, and those guys are new. Arthur Smith wasn't here for Kenny Pickett. Tom Arth obviously wasn't here for Kenny Pickett, and those guys, I think should get that clean slate, should get that opportunity, and they'll be talking to and be more touch points to the quarterback more than Omar Khan will once that guy is actually drafted. So I thought Arthur Smith showed ability to develop Justin Fields and left him better off on the other side after getting him. He's a better quarterback now than he was this time a season ago. He's developed Ryan Tannehill, so I have some optimism there to develop. So you never know. As you said, Dave, there's a ton of variables, and it's hard to answer those things in a vacuum. But I have more confidence than I think the average Steelers fan would.
Did they get every ounce of what remaining upside and ability there was out of Russell Wilson too? At its core, with what we knew Russell Wilson was, Russell Wilson pretty much was as advertised.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say that he got better in Pittsburgh, but did he at least maintain? Was he exactly what we thought he would be the moment he arrived in Pittsburgh?
Generally, yes, but you saw the flashes. They at least brought the flashes and the best out in Russell Wilson, albeit temporarily before the whole bottom fell out for the entire team. So I think there's still something positive to be said about what they did with Russell Wilson.
I would say that. Look, we saw things that we knew he was good at, and that was pushing the football down the field, more towards outside the numbers. We saw at least he didn't have a lot of turnovers. I didn't like all of the throwaways that he had, the wasted downs within that.
Mm-hmm.
But and then obviously we kind of knew both between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson what we were kind of expecting as far as sacks go. Here's the thing: if you draft Shedeur Sanders too, he's gonna take sacks, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there'll be something there. I mean, it just, regardless of who the quarterback is, this offensive line must develop. No matter if it's Aaron Rodgers, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, whoever the case is, Mason Rudolph, this offensive line has to play well. They have to become a strength. They have the potential to do that, but there's still so much unknown there. Broderick Jones in year 3, Troy Fautanu in year 2, Mason McCormick in year 2, even Zach Frazier in year 2, even though he looks like the best of the group so far. There's so much riding on just this offensive line becoming what Pittsburgh envisioned it would be.
Let's open this up to the chat real quick to chime in the chat here. Did the Steelers get every ounce of what they could out of Justin Fields and Russell Wilson in I know a lot of you probably think Justin Fields probably should have played more and been, never should have lost a job. But when each were on the field playing, just using that alone, did the Steelers at least get the max out of both of those guys?
Good question. I was curious to see what the chat says. Got a $5 super chat from Mojo Bull. Thank you so much for the super chat. He says, if the Steelers sign Rodgers at $10 million, what else do the Steelers need to do to be considered a serious Super Bowl contender? The defense has to become an elite level group, coalesce and really, get back to where it was in 2019 type levels, and Rodgers has to turn back the clock a little bit. It's still hard to see any other realistic move putting Pittsburgh in that conversation, but those are the things that would have to happen. This offensive line, like I mentioned, improving greatly, top 10 unit at the least to get to Super Bowl contention. The defense really rounding back into form, run defense, pass rush, turnovers, and then Rodgers playing good football. Those would be the tenets of getting to that point.
Yeah, I agree. Look, the defense, particularly against the run, they got to play better against the run. We got to see those sack totals go back in the 50, above 50 for the season there. I think a guy like Rodgers, you're going to have to maximize what he does best at his at his age and his ability right now. As you mentioned, the offense, you're going to have to run the football. No matter who the quarterback is, you're going to have to be able to run the football a lot better than you have.
Yeah, for sure. So got some responses here. A lot of people saying yes, that Pittsburgh did get the
Okay.
most out of Fields and Wilson. I was a little surprised by that. I thought there'd be more no's, but
not everybody's chimed in yet. Maybe we got some more no's coming.
But yeah, let us know your thoughts in the chat. Be sure to like, subscribe, and of course check out the site on screen. There is Matthew Marksey's his final Steelers mock draft. Got it says, what's up, David Alex? Big supporter of you guys and always checking in on you guys daily. Thank you so much. He says, my question is, if the Steelers trade down, what team or teams do you think we trade with? A great question, difficult answer, obviously. I've looked at Kansas City at 31. If they need a tackle, and they do, and they could trade up, they got a couple of third-round picks that they could flip Pittsburgh's way. Houston, also tackle needy after trading Laramie Tunsil. They have to protect C.J. Stroud much, much better than they did in 2024. That's a smaller trade down to 24. And then you could theoretically talk about getting out of the first round. The Giants at 34, the Saints at 40. If they go up for a quarterback and if Pittsburgh does not want to take a quarterback, do they go down?
Who are some teams that they have more of more recent relationship, I guess, with when it comes to trade? Not that, I mean, every year's different and all like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Bears,
they've yeah, Bears. That guy probably won't even. That probably has Omar Khan. Ryan Poles probably has Omar Khan's number blocked now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've done deals in the past with the Giants. It seems like, right? Washington rings a bell in past drafs.
Yeah, but
I
that's
guess
a new regime.
Yeah, Denver's a kind of a new regime, but I think they've dealt with Denver before. And look, you can't judge anything by that. I mean, the long answer is it's so hard to kind of, especially, who was the Tampa Bay general manager a week or two ago that says, man, it's so hard to, especially in the first round, to think that there's going to be a lot of movement going on.
Yeah, Jason Light.
Right. Because of this year's class and all like that, and the capital, people aren't going to want to probably give up probably traditional trade chart values due to this class and all like that. I think we laid out a few, maybe even during the podcast earlier today, right? I mean, could you see maybe, I don't know, Kansas City coming up for somebody? Maybe the Giants want to move back into the first round, bottom of the first round. If New Orleans does not take a quarterback at 9 and they stay put there, might they want to get back into the bottom for somebody?
It is, as we talked about, a long way up though for the Saints to do that. From 40 to even 32 is a decent jump. As 21 is a big jump.
And you look at the teams immediately. Let's say a reasonable jump up of about 4 or 5 teams after the Steelers pick at 21st overall. Are the Chargers really going to want to move up one spot for somebody based on their needs? And man, they have 1, 2, 3. I mean, they have a bunch of picks though. But would they be willing to come off like a 3rd or 4th round pick, or even a 2nd round pick to go up one spot, and would it be feasible for the Steelers to go down one spot for that? You got Green Bay after them, and Green Bay has got 3, 6, 8 picks. They don't have any multiple 2nd or 3rd rounds. They just got 1 in each of those rounds. I mean, are they in serious contention to jump to Pittsburgh's spot to get ahead of the Chargers for anyone in particular? Minnesota's only got 4 picks overall in this whole draft. Yeah,
they're not going to come up. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, Buffalo at 30 needs D-line help. But I don't know if Pittsburgh wants to trade in the same waters.
That far.
Well, just fishing in the same waters for a team looking for defensive linemen, if that's what Pittsburgh is doing. And I assume if they're looking to trade down, they're not looking at taking a quarterback either because he's gone, or they just don't want to do it. So I think Houston, Kansas City, and then the Giants would be 3 teams I'd be looking at. But who knows? It just takes one team. Where the board falls, it's unpredictable. It's a draft for a reason. Next question comes from LDAV44. Says, hi, Alex. Love your work at Steelers Depot. Thank you so much. He says he has 2 questions. 1, do you think George Pickens is going to be extended? And 2, who would you choose between Harmon and Nolan, and why? Dave, you can tackle the first question. Will Pickens get an extension?
I'm not expecting him to. I would be quite surprised if they did it. The only way I can envision maybe something like that happening is if they just don't do anything. They don't sign Rodgers. They don't trade for Cousins. They decide to roll with Mason Rudolph in their quarterback room as is. Obviously maybe add a rookie draft pick to it, and then that opens up a large selection of cash for them to potentially maybe do something with. But on the flip side, if you did get something done with George Pickens, what's the minimum that he's willing to take it as far as APY goes? And then second would be, I just can't envision them fully guaranteed money past 2025. And that might turn Pickens in his camp off as well. So for a extension for Pickens to happen, I think the only remote chance of that happening would be as if they don't wind up with one of these veteran quarterbacks eating up some of that cash for 2025. I'm not expecting George Pickens to get extended.
Just quick sidebar, we have just posted on the site our 2025 Steelers Depot mock draft contest. You can win some of Dave's money. The rules are in the article. Be sure to read them thoroughly and follow them to a T. But it's a fun thing you've been doing for how many years now, Dave? A long, long time, I think.
A long, long time. And I think we changed the format of it about, I think this is about the 6th year now using the format that we've been using, and everybody seems to like it. We usually get, well over 100 entries into this thing. And yeah, the hardest part's grading it. And I usually ask the great David O to do that. And it's painstaking to try to do that. And I pay him to do it. So not only does he get some of Dave's money, but the winner gets some of Dave's money as well.
Everyone gets Dave's money, and that's what we like to hear around here. What if Pickens, just to tie up this topic, what if Pickens is a really good soldier throughout the spring and summer, doesn't complain, shows up for everything, goes in training camp, no hold in? Does that make Pittsburgh more... I mean, I assume it would make Pittsburgh more likely to do a deal, but how much more likely would it make Pittsburgh to do a deal? Or is the real test, how do you respond over the course of a long regular season with its ups and downs?
Yeah, I don't think it would change any of the parameters of the numbers of the guaranteed stuff. Sure. And I still think the likelihood would depend on whether or not they have a quarterback eating up a chunk of the cash or not. Because remember, if this team does not spend at least 100% of this year's cap number in cash this year, that it's going to create a huge windfall for them to have to make up in the third year of the CBA.
Yeah.
And if we go by the previous 3-year period of the CBA, which was the first time in the new CBA that it was a 3-year span instead of a 4-year span, I think they are pretty close to, I think there was something like 90% cash of cap in the first year of that cycle, and then 100 and something, 102% or something, 103% of the cap number in cash in the second year, and then like 97% of the cap in cash in year 3. And it would make it extremely hard, or put them in, paint baby into a corner, if you will, if they don't at least spend 100% of this year's cap number in cash. And part of them getting some of that cash spent this offseason is obviously TJ Watt, and then at least a quarterback that's going to earn at least $10 million in cash. And then maybe, maybe you forward up some money, like we talked about Chris Boswell. Maybe you extend Deshaun Elliott. Maybe you extend Jaylen Warren, put a little extra more cash in his pocket in 2024, because when you look for or 2025, when you look forward to 2026 and next off season, where are you going to spend cash at? How many of you listening to this think Minka Fitzpatrick's going to get another mega deal next off season? How many of you think Yeah, you got deals for Joey Porter and Keanu Benton could potentially get done, but what's the likelihood of those being, top 5 deals? It's going to depend on how they play, next year. So once again, I think the only chance that a Pickens extension happens is if something doesn't happen big monetarily wise with Rodgers, or trade for Cousins, or whomever. So you have your cash shortfall there, and then he's got to agree to the deal. And I just cannot see them guaranteeing money past 2025 for him. And I also can't see them making him a $35 million per guy. And if he keeps his nose clean and plays out the rest of his contract this year, he's going to probably be the number one prize next offseason. And not only can he probably threaten the top of the wide receiver market, but he could probably get more fully guaranteed money in his pocket.
Over 100 people here in the chat appreciate that. The other part of the question, just quickly, Dave, Harmon or Nolan, who'd be your choice?
Oh man, I really like Nolan's game, man. I really do, and I'm they just haven't really paid him, quote unquote, a lot of attention, and he is an older guy, right? So
I thought he was an older guy last year.
Yeah. Nolan just pops off tape, and he's a better run defender in my opinion than Harmon.
Okay.
Is. That's why I'm kind of. What if this team has the pick of all 3 of them there?
Sure.
Grant, Nolan, and Harmon. I think well-rounded wise too. I think Nolan is the better, most well-rounded player as far as pass rush and run defense goes. I think I think Grant and I think probably he's a little bit more positional versatile as well too, as far as being, even though Harmon can move from the 0 out to the 5. I think Nolan's a little just as kind of position flexible within that. Now he's getting a little bit shorter in stature and all on top. I
think Nolan could play nose tackle?
I think in a pinch he could.
But better than Harmon?
Harmon didn't play a lot. There's not a lot of Harmon over the nose to look at.
Yeah, but he played up and down the line. He's done it. Probably a little more, maybe more Michigan State than Oregon.
Harmon last year played 28 snaps in the A gap.
Okay. What about B gap?
353.
Yeah. And then did Nolan play a lot in the A gap? I hadn't looked at the numbers. Maybe he did.
Hold on a minute here.
While you do that, I just want to get to a couple of comments here at the bottom, some questions and comments. Mike Odessa was talking about stealing his question on Pickens. Yeah, Pickens practiced with the route god and Deontay Johnson. He also did that last year, though, so I wouldn't put a lot of stock. It's good he's training, but it's not necessarily the sign of a changed man in George Pickens. Ken Poman about the stop the run narrative is flawed. Steelers were 6th in the NFL against the run. The rushing yards they gave up to teams with a running quarterback were scheme related, not personnel related. It was both. Some of it was scheme, but listen, you're going to face mobile quarterbacks. You're facing Lamar Jackson twice a year, so you better be able to handle that element of it. And there were certainly issues of Pittsburgh getting blown off the ball, not holding the point of attack, linebackers not in their gaps. There were a lot of issues. So I think schematics were one element, but personnel was just worn down. This was a tired defense by the end of last year, and you got to get some youth there on the D-line with Hayward in his 30s and not much else there besides Benton.
All right, Nolan just 19 A-gap snaps, okay. 432 in the B-gap, 103 over tackles. So his kind of mimics what Harmon's was last year to some degree, but he is a little bit shorter in stature. I think he in the snaps that I saw him more in, closer to the center. It seemed like he held his ground a little bit better.
And then the question also came in about off the field issues with Pickens, and somebody was saying but he wasn't late to the KC game, which I'm not entirely sure what that means. But Pickens is not a bad guy, but everyone knows what that means. The hot-headedness, the volatility, the penalties, the flags, the fines he's racked up, and apparently habitually tardy.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of just adding some color on George Pickens there. All right, back to our questions. Let's see. Patrick Lee. Hey, guys, there is some chatter. The Steelers would like to move down in the draft if possible. In your opinion, do you think they would move down if their top interior D-line prospects are still on the board? That's a good question. It's hard to get in their head. We'll hear from them tomorrow. Not that I expect Mike Tomlin or Omar Khan to tell us everything or really anything. If there's anyone, Omar Khan doesn't tell you jack. He's even worse than Mike Tomlin. Tomlin will give you maybe a little bit. Khan will give you just every single boilerplate, standard, non-answer every single time, which is his right and not a bad thing to do. But it's not all. Kevin Colbert was more transparent than Omar Khan was. I don't know. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. It depends on the weight of the offer, the board. If they feel like this is a really good D-line class top to bottom, you go down a couple spots and still get a good defensive lineman, even if one of your targets is off the board. That makes sense. I'll probably write an article for Thursday, the what I would do in the first round article. I have some thoughts on that, so I'll kind of give my opinion probably on draft day.
We're going to get tomorrow. We're open to moving up, moving down. We're open to anything.
Yeah, every door is open, all options on the table, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's hard to imagine them going up. So if they moved anywhere in this draft, it would probably be down. And we have not seen this team move down in the first round since Casey Hampton many moons ago. And what did we say? How many spots was that?
3, 16 to 19.
It's kind of, I mean, it would be, not only would it be stop the presses for them moving down in a draft in the first round, it would be, if they moved more than 3 spots down, it would be, oh my goodness, you'd have to stop the presses twice.
Stop them, restart them, and stop them again.
Right.
We'll see. I just want to shout out some people here in the chat. Can't get to everyone, but just some names I see on screen right now. Simon, Bryan, Gregory, Daniel Berry's always here. Got Ross, David, JD Page, Steel Pastor, Brad, Kaysen, and Stack or Starve. Let's get to, Simon's watching from the UK. Appreciate that. Steelers by the Lake says, what do you guys think is the bigger priority in the draft, outside corner or slot corner? That kind of ties into Herb's Plays, who says, has anyone informed the Steelers the nickel is a starting position? Trying not to get my hopes up, we might get one this year. I'll be happy to be proven wrong. I don't think this is the year Pittsburgh makes the swing at nickel, which is like every other draft since losing Mike Hilton. I'm with you. I wish they had more stability. It does at least look a little bit better this year with a returning Beanie Bishop Jr. Brandon Echols can play some slot. I imagine undrafted free agent, maybe late draft pick, gets worked in as well. So it's better than the, let's put Minkah Fitzpatrick there because there's nothing else approached. It's better than last year where it's everyone's hurt, and it's Beanie Bishop's job. Let's hope he can run with it till Cam Sutton comes back, which made things even worse. So it is a low bar to clear, but Pittsburgh, I think, has a better plan at nickel this year than last year. I think slot, though, is still the bigger need than outside corner, at least for the short term.
And even if you drafted a nickel this year, what are the odds of getting that kid on the field in the first half of the season, getting him a lot of snaps?
I mean, how locked in is Beanie Bishop right now to his spot in terms of the starter spot?
I'm not saying he can't be overtaken, especially by a guy like Nichols, but I would, it's
a higher chance for the slot than the outside because your 2 outside corners are set.
Yeah, but look how long it took him to get Joey Porter on the field regularly, starter.
Right, but I'm just saying comparing the two, there's more.
Both positions are very. The commenter is right in the fact that both positions are very important in today's NFL because of how much sub-package teams play. But I'm with you in the fact that I think you're more apt to see a longer avatar type outside corner at some point in this draft than you probably are a true nickel.
I mean, it could be either. They just haven't shown a ton of interest in corner. They signed Darius Slay as a 1-year stopgap. They're optimistic on Corey Trice. They bring in Echols. It sounds like that's the group they're going to roll with, of course, Joey Porter Jr. as their number 1. Bring back James Pierre for special teams. Yeah, Bishop. Just doesn't seem like it's going to be highly addressed, but we'll see what happens. But I do agree the 1-year stopgaps at outside corner has gotten annoying. It's been a revolving door from Levi Wallace, who was 2 years, but Patrick Peterson, Dante Jackson, to Darius Slay, to someone else next year. They got to find a long-term option. Hopefully it's Trice, but health has been, of course, a problem. Brian Sutton, why so little talk on Trey Amos? Doesn't even make your long short list despite the top 30 visit. Fair. I just thought Amos is more maybe late first round, early second round. The lack of interest in cornerback overall. If you want to put him on that short list, more power to you. I just didn't get a great feel for him at 21.
Yeah, I didn't get a great feel for him either there. And it feels like he would certainly be off the board prior to 83.
Yeah, definitely prior to 83. Got a very generous $20 super chat from Jesse Yates. Thank you so much, Jesse. He says, you guys are awesome. Don't know what I would do without your information. We really appreciate it, Jesse.
Thanks, Jesse.
Exactly what we're here for. Fantastic content. He says, my question is, in your heart of hearts, if Shedeur, Harmon, Eamon, Grant, Hampton are all available at 21, who do they take? Well, I don't want to spoil my mock draft tomorrow, and I don't think Dave wants to either, right. So I don't mean to give you a non-answer here with a very generous super chat. If they love Shedeur, if they really like him, if they have a first-round grade on him, I don't know what would prevent them from taking Shedeur if that's how they truly feel about him.
True.
So is that?
And I don't want to tip too much of my hand either here. Look, that's why we kind of tease our mock drafts and all like that. And in my heart of hearts, if Shedeur's on the board, and if they have the conviction that he could be a franchise quarterback, they should take him because of that conviction. But I don't know that they have that conviction, and I'm not 100% he will be on the board.
Right.
But and once again, you're getting into you kind of splitting hairs when you're talking about, say, Grant, Nolan, and Harmon. Once again, I think Nolan's the more well-rounded player all the way around. I think if this team is serious about stopping the run up the middle, then it would make a little bit more sense to put Grant in the middle and kick Keanu Benton out. But then you get into the semantics. Well, how do you justify when you're not going to play all that much base of spending a first round pick on a guy that is pretty much an A and B gap player,
Mm-hmm.
And whereas Harmon is a B gap over the tackle, much like I guess Walter Nolan is for the most part there. So, and then you got Nolan up there in age. You got here's one thing: we're going to have to throw a lot of things out the window if Nolan ends up being the pick, because they didn't go to the Khan and Omar Khan. At least to our knowledge, was not at the Ole Miss Pro Day,
and no visit. And that's my thing. If they really did like Nolan that much, how do you not get eyes on him if you're Pittsburgh? It's just hard to see that happening. I mean, it could, and maybe there's something we're missing. Maybe there was some private meeting, some hidden connection that we're not aware of, the way that they don't go to Washington's Pro Day last year, but they talked to Kalen DeBoer, the Washington coaching staff who coached Fautanu, and got some inside information. Then, of course, they brought Fautanu in for the visit, but it's just hard to see Nolan being the pick if he's not checking those boxes. At least with Grant, apparently they were at Michigan the night before to have that dinner and then flew back to meet Aaron Rodgers in the Chevy Malibu. So at least there's that connection for Grant.
Right, and we could put an asterisk on that moving forward and justify it.
I mean, it's them attending the Pro Day. The Pro Day is not about the workout as much as it is the get to know you and see how you interact with teammates in the dinner and the face-to-face. That matters more than just watching a guy run a 40 again. But good question, and my mock draft tomorrow will at least clear up my thoughts. But we're all guessing, and quarterbacks are wild cards, and we're all along for the ride. You, me, everybody in the chat, we're all along for the ride once Thursday at 8 p.m. gets going. Gregory Collins, what makes Dart better than Howard or McCord? I like Howard more than Dart. I assume that's a hot take here for the chat. I didn't have Dart super highly graded. I compared him as a Gardner Minshew type. I think also Lance Zierlein compared him to Gardner Minshew. So I can't make that case. But I think with Dart, there's a lot of good in his game. I question where the great in his game is. He's tough. He's gritty. I think will be respected in that locker room. But I didn't have Dart higher than Will Howard.
Yeah, a lot of RPO with what he did, and Lane Kiffin's a hell of a schemer, and obviously had some good wide receiver talent there on top of it. And look, I told Alex this morning, I went back and watched more Will Howard stuff, especially some of that K-State stuff. And I've come around a lot on Will Howard, obviously not first round material, but I don't, it sort of feels like Dart's going to be off the board
by 21.
Yeah.
I don't get that sense.
I get the sense that maybe that's where New Orleans is going.
At 9.
Yeah.
Hey, crazier things have happened. I think they're going to pass on quarterback, but I'm on record saying Cam Ward's going first overall, and then after that, I have no idea what's going to happen to quarterback. Let's see, what else do we have here?
What if we have a rewind of only one quarterback drafted in the first round again? And what if it's Cam Ward and because didn't the beat, not that it means much of anything, but didn't the beat writers hold their annual LA Times mock today? And was it Cam Ward the only quarterback taken in that?
I believe so. It is tougher without trades, and teams can't trade up and get in the first round as they often want to do. But Cam Ward was the only quarterback taken. Yes, and Jerry Dulac, who has talked about quarterback versus D-line, even with Shedeur on the board, he went D-line, I should say, with Walter Nolan. Now, I don't know, were they doing that as in what the team will do, or just kind of their own personal pet project? I'm really not sure the intent of the exercise.
Yeah, but they have done, Farmer has done that now for several years. It's always something to kind of look forward to every year.
Mm-hmm. I'm just asking, is this a what they expect to happen draft?
Oh, I don't know what he's telling them and all. Yeah, I would like to think that.
I assume it's a what is in the team's head kind of a thing, rather than just what is Jerry Dulac's personal pick, but I don't know. Ross says, I think I would rather have Milroe in the 3rd over Sanders in the 1st. Where will Jalen Milroe go in the draft? Kind of losing some of that first-round buzz, but I can make this guy sit in the green room for 2 whole days? That seems unrealistic.
Yeah.
We'll see. Got a good question. Should have mentioned this on the podcast today. Maybe we'll get to it for Wednesday, Dave. JD Page says, hello, fellas. Love the content. Quarterback question. What's your interest level in Sam Howell as an option if he's a cheap trade target? And he'll definitely be a cheap trade target, JD. John Snyder, the Seahawks GM, confirming the reports that came out over the weekend that Howell is basically on the trade block. Teams are inquiring. Pittsburgh has a lot of connections to Sam Howell as part of that 2022 class. Arthur Smith, also the Falcons, when he was in Atlanta in 2022, showed a lot of interest in Sam Howell. What is your interest in Sam Howell, Dave?
If they didn't draft a quarterback, in the first 3 or 4 rounds and got, to a point where, you're at the best of the rest situation, I'm not giving up much for him. I might give up a 6th or a 7th next year for him or something like that. But I'm in the NFL tape that he has, it kind of matches what he did at college. Man, he's not afraid to step up into the pocket. But his fearlessness of stepping up into the pocket is actually one of the deterrents for him. He takes bad sacks. It's almost like he's wanting to prove that I'm going to stand in here. Takes a lot of hits, and also I view him as backup material.
In 3rd stringer, really. I mean, that's more depth, take a flyer, 7th round, pick swap type stuff. I could see it happening post-draft. I think teams want to get through the draft, see what the landscape is, and go from there. But it wouldn't shock me if they did a future 7th conditional pick, some minor deal for Sam Howell, sure.
Obviously, you're not going to do that if you're going to draft a quarterback.
I guess you could, theoretically, with Rodgers still outstanding. You need 4 quarterbacks to camp, and who knows if Rodgers is even coming to camp and when that decision will come. Right now, it's Rudolph and Skylar Thompson, so draft a guy, 4th quarterback for Howell's your 3rd stringer, Thompson's your 4th stringer. Pittsburgh likes experience top to bottom on your depth chart. Hey, it could still work. Steel Pastor says, I just hope that Sanders is gone, not interested. It's going to be wild if Shedeur Sanders is the pick. Dave and I were talking about it just before we came on the live stream, and it's going to be crazy for sure.
Yeah, we'll get our answer of what the conviction is or not with him if he's still on the board there.
Brad Smith, Maxwell Hairston, 1st pick. So he's going out of the box there to say the Kentucky corner who's attending the draft. Last-second decision there, last-second invite or acceptance. So Hairston's one of my guys, and I don't think he'll be the pick, but I really like Maxwell Hairston.
All right.
Kason Krause, would you trade Minkah if someone offered a 2nd rounder to get that 2nd rounder back, Dave? Would you trade Minkah Fitzpatrick?
No, I don't think I would.
I would not either. Too hard to replace him, and I'm not going to give up on Minkah Fitzpatrick just yet. Let's see. What else do we have? About 10, 15 minutes left. What would the Steelers get from the Giants trading back and giving them Sanders? I think the Giants have a couple of day 2 selections. I believe multiple, 3, 4 or so. So you get back 34. You get back another day 2 pick. Maybe something else. Probably something else. I don't know if I had that worked out in my hypothetical trade scenario post over the weekend. I don't think I officially did that. But you would get back a handful of picks.
Giants have number 3, number 34 in the second, and they have 2 third-rounders. One of those is at 99, a comp pick. I don't want that one.
What's the other?
65. That's the one I would. That's the one I'd try to get.
So it would be 34, 65, maybe something else for 21.
If I'm going to have to go all the way down to 34, I mean, if I'm giving up that first, and I'm at least getting that second round pick, and I mean, I suppose if they're going to give me 34 and at the end of the round, third round comp, that might do it. What does the trade chart say on that?
It's going to be hard for me to pull up. So wait, you're saying 34, 65, and 99?
No, 34, 99, and...
Nah, it's not enough. That's not enough. It's got to be the 65.
All right, so it's got to be 34 and 65 then.
Yeah, and probably something else.
Because you're going from 21 down to the second round. You're going all the way out of the second round.
The first round, yeah. You lose the 5th-year option.
I mean, going out of the first round to the second round, and there's a price to be paid for that, yeah.
Especially if they want a quarterback. Like, you want to go...
Yeah.
Listen, if they trade up for a quarterback and don't have to give a first round for it, like, that's a steal in the Giants' mind. They think they're getting a franchise quarterback and don't have to spend a first-round pick to do it. That's winning if you're the Giants. So they should be willing to give up a pretty penny to do so. A second-round pick, obviously the second-round pick, the third-round pick, the higher of the two, and some other additional capital. Maybe something next year, too. Vegas TJG says, I have 28 picks in this mock I'm currently doing, so I think he's having a hard time figuring out where to slot to and who to pick there, and I feel your pain on that one.
Yeah, the hardest thing within all of deciding quarterback or maybe defensive line, particularly in the first round, is what happens if they stand pat. And once again, 21 to 83 is a long wait, man.
Yeah, but you can comfort yourself by looking at pictures of DK Metcalf and saying that's where our second-round pick went.
Yeah.
And who would be better in the second round than DK Metcalf? Nobody.
I get that.
So I think that's the way that... But I understand your point for sure, and bridging that gap is not bad business if you can swing it. But as I said this morning, everyone wants to trade down. That sells, but who's buying? And that's the other step in this dance partner equation. So not a great analogy by me. Simon says, literally in the chat here, Simon Winstanley says, I feel like they really want Harmon or at the very least one of the top 3 D linemen, and if they aren't available, we could end up with a panicked Terrell Edmonds style pick of a running back or a defensive back. Nick Emanwori was, we comped him to Terrell Edmonds in our post, and they looked at Emanwori and they look at these safeties some, Dave, and so I'm not going to discount that. Not a crazy idea, Simon. Dave says, looking back at free agency, would you both have given Fields the same contract the Jets did? Let's assume Rodgers is going to sign 1 year, $15 million. So basically saying, what scenario would you prefer? Fields' Jets contract, which was 2 years, $30 million, or Rodgers at $15 million? I would go with Fields. Dave?
Yeah, go with the devil that you know, a little bit younger there, and at least you have him if you want him. You know, you could obviously wrangle out of it because what was the total cash for? But there is that guaranteed money. What did Fields get in year 2 that was guaranteed?
$5 million guaranteed money in year 2.
Was that it?
I'm pretty sure.
Or was it? I thought it was higher than that.
Maybe I'm wrong. I thought it was $5 million guaranteed in year number 2.
$10 million guaranteed in year number 2.
Okay.
Which is half of his base.
Okay. Still, it's not a lot of guaranteed money.
Right.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah, I'd probably been more apt to try to see if I can build on what he did. Yeah.
And then just one comment earlier about Pickens wasn't late if he was there before the game started. That's not on time in the NFL. You're there after inactives, that is late. There are times and schedules players have to be at the stadium for, and so just simply showing up before the ball is kicked off is not being on time in the NFL. The standards are much higher. Steelers by the lake. If Pittsburgh were to trade back to late first or early second, would you consider Darius Alexander there? I want to see where Alexander goes because I like the tape, but there's age concerns. There's the competition concerns, which aren't major, but are there. His production wasn't off the charts good. In a deep D-line class, I do wonder where Darius Alexander goes. If it was a little rich to be late first round, but maybe I'm off on that.
Yeah. I misspoke. Alexander's the one that's a little bit older. Nolan's not.
How old is Nolan? Is he?
Nolan 21.53.
Okay.
I keep getting the ages confused on those two guys in particular. But
Yeah.
Alexander's the one that's older, not Nolan.
Yeah, Alexander's going to turn 25 in August, and so that's not a deal breaker.
Harmon, Grant, and Nolan are right around the same age.
Yeah, I think Harmon is 21. Is Grant also 21? If not, he's right, or he's just early 20.
Yeah, they're right there all together. Harmon's 21.72, Grant's 21.49, and Nolan's 21.53. And then you got Alexander's 24.66, almost 3 years older.
There you go. Jonathan, regarding the slot cornerback, might Ryan Watts work there? I just don't know the status of him. He's out of the neck brace, but that injury was super serious. They moved him to free safety. I don't think he's really going to fit as a slot corner, Jonathan.
Right.
Let's see. Alex, did you already put out your 7-round mock? No, I'm on pick 150-something right now. I think actually I'm starting the 6th round tonight. It's going to come out on Wednesday, God willing, so not there yet. Ken Poman is banging the table for Jamari Caldwell, so that's fair, the teammate of Derek Harmon. So could that be an option in the 4th round, 3rd round, potentially? Maybe he's brought in for a visit.
Man, nothing would tickle me more to see this team double dip.
Yeah, at 6 picks, it's harder to make that happen, but the D-line class is quality, so we'll have to see. They've had a lot of lower-level investments in the D-line, so it's like how much is too much, and also Logan Lee is coming back. Do they view Logan Lee as their double dip, as their rookie, non-rookie coming back?
That's a lot. Yeah, it's kind of hard to bank on.
Well, I mean, he'll be on the team. It's like banking on a 6th-round defensive lineman. If you take somebody late in the draft, it's the same banking, although Lee, at least you know him a bit better than you would a rookie. That's kind of how I look at it. Like they could double dip, but I think they're gonna look at all these bonus rookies, Fautanu and Roman Wilson and Logan Lee and maybe Ryan Watts, and kind of get a rookie and a half class for 2025. I know Omar Khan is going to say something like that, probably tomorrow or post-draft. We like to think of it, we have 1.5 classes because we have all these injured guys that are coming back. Dave and Alex, how do you feel if Hampton is the pick? That's a Marion Hampton out of North Carolina, the running back. How high are you on him? I'd be pretty underwhelmed if Marion Hampton was the pick. I like him. I just don't think he's special to take in the 1st round.
Somebody going to have to call and check on me.
Yeah. There'll be no other future live streams with Dave. He'll be crashing into telephone poles.
You better call on me if they take a running back in round 1.
So there's your answer on that. Mike Odessa, we're not going to actually answer this question, but I had the thought in my head today, and I'll say this so I don't have to get, because if I write it down, people will yell at me more. But Mike says, who's your pick for the next Pope? I hear they may be leaning Shedeur or Sanders, but we'll see when the smoke clears. My question is, and we'll give this to the chat. Dave, you don't have to answer this one if you want to get in trouble for it. What will we know first? The next Pope or Aaron Rodgers' decision in Pittsburgh? That feels like a very good Rich Eisen, Chris Brockman question. What's more likely? New Pope or Aaron Rodgers signing? Which comes first? Let us know in the chat. All right. What else do we have here? Keanu Benton was a 4th, and he is solid. Benton was a 2nd-round selection, Jesse. Is Sam Howell stealing Baker Mayfield? I think he'd do very well to even get close to Baker's status.
Yeah, I think it'd be damn good if he got anywhere close to that.
Mike Odessa, how concerned are you with the report today about Harmon and his medicals? I'm thinking Khan sent that out to make sure he fell to them. Chess, not checkers. I have no idea. Harmon, to my knowledge, has no known injury history. There are always lingering things and long-term things about knees, and that happened on that report on Fautanu, on Darnell Washington, but I can't find a trace of any injury information on Harmon, so it's really hard to even know what that means. At least on Alfred Collins, who was also mentioned as well, he was in a boot in his pro day. He's had a calf strain. There's at least something you can point to. With Harmon, I got nothing.
Unless there's something going on like with degenerative with the neck or something that nobody knows about or what. I mean, watch him go run that hoop drill at the combine, man.
Yeah, I mean, it all looks good on paper, but you never know what's hidden there for an injury, arthritic knee, that type of stuff. It all comes out after the pick comes in, or like this guy's falling and Ian Rappaport comes on screen. Well, guys, actually, we heard this crazy medical thing we didn't tell you about before the draft because we didn't want
stenosis of the spine, or
right.
one of those things that.
Oh God, you give me Jarvis Jones flashbacks on that one.
Something along those lines, that we don't know or people hadn't got out yet. And look, if something's going to get out soon, as far as specifics, it's going to start getting out here in the next 48 hours, right?
Well, yeah, there's 2 times. Monday morning, like today, there was a million reports, and then on draft day, there's going to be another 10 different reports about what we're hearing and stuff like that going to come out. But I think some of these reporters intentionally won't say injury concerns on these guys because the agents will yell at them and be mad that you're hurting our client's draft stock, and they won't give them information in the future. And so these things always come out either like mid-draft when a guy's falling or post-draft. But Pittsburgh's doctors have been very lenient, it seems like, on injury history, on guys like Peyton Wilson and Corey Trice and some of the medical concerns that came out about Troy Fautanu and Darnell Washington. So will that even concern Pittsburgh? Maybe they don't even have doctors. I don't know. So who knows?
Tanner says Rodgers retires to become the next Pope.
You know what? That honestly cannot even be discounted at this point. So fair, good response there. I said 2 bad words, Jarvis Jones. Yeah, that was that spinal stenosis with Jarvis and then a 4.95 40. And Kevin Colbert said, sign me up. We love him running slow. That was what he said. We love that he ran slow, so he fell to us. And that might have been the first clue that this was not a good pick. Who was the...
I went through all of his sacks ahead of that. I remember back when we didn't have all 22. I looked at all of his sacks and said, "Man, there's a warning there." This is before people started tracking high quality sacks and all. And went through, found all of his sacks from Georgia and all like that. Post about it and all. And I think even at the time, rest in peace, Dave T said, "Yeah, he's just a what did he say? He's a stand around the pile guy." And Dave T even warned about Jarvis Jones.
Yeah, those sacks were not quality. Played in a really good Georgia defense that stunted and got him free. And Pittsburgh learned a valuable lesson that day. That's for sure. All right. Any other questions?
Has it been 12 years since that happened?
Is that 2013 or 2015? 2015? 2013?
What year was that?
Somebody tell me what year Jarvis Jones. They're all running together. I thought it was 2015, but I could be wrong. I think 2015.
Okay.
Somebody double check me though, because I don't want to leave on bad information. 2013. God, these years are running together.
Yeah, we've done this Hayward for a long
11,
time.
DeCastro 12. Who was 13? Was it 2013?
Dupree's 2015. 2013 was Jarvis Jones. Bud Dupree was 15. Jarvis Jones was 2013.
Okay, and then 14.
Shazier.
Right. God, I was in college. Yeah, I remember doing that report. It was like 2 a.m. in the morning. I was trying to watch Ryan Shazier tape. So, yeah, where has the time gone? So thank you guys. It was 2013. And, Le'Veon Bell at least helped kind of salvage that after that. Let's see, what else do we have here? Mike Miller, I'm from Canton, Ohio. Huge Steelers fan. Who is going to be the new quarterback for the Steelers? Mike, I wish I had that answer for you. If I had that, man, I'd be I don't know what I'd be doing right now, but we'll find out. We'll get some information hopefully on Thursday and go from there. And
yeah, look, I never would have thought we'd be sitting here end of April and still wondering about the quarterback situation.
Yeah, and Michael Stenberg, Alex, I remember listening to the Terrible Towel podcast back when you just started working with Dave. What year was that? Was it 2013? My first article ever was on Jarvis Jones, actually breaking down his preseason debut. So that was my introduction and your introduction to me. And I'm still here, and Jarvis, I wish him well. I think he was at Georgia as a coach, but I'm still here. So there you go.
What was that old post that you had wrote about film breakdown on that old message board where I found you? Do you remember who you did that post on?
Who was the article on?
Yeah. It was all written up in the message board on that site where I found you.
I'd have to think back. I mean, I was on the Steelers Universe forums way back when. I don't know who it would have been about, but I was ESPN message boards in like junior high and early high school, Steelers Universe in like high school, college, early college. That was kind of where I hung out for.
Yeah, I think that's where I found you, and I can't remember the prospect that you were breaking down in that.
Yeah, I have no earthly idea. So Anyway, a good trip down memory lane. We'll be back, of course, in a couple of Mondays to recap the 2025 NFL Draft, and really looking forward to that. And so really thankful for our team who's done tremendous work this year, getting all of you guys, but myself and Dave included, in getting prepared for the draft with a ton of scouting reports and breakdowns and studies and just every which way to cover this thing. And so I'm excited to get some answers on Thursday, Dave, and I'm sure you are too, to find out who the picks will finally be.
Yeah, absolutely. Cannot wait. And people should know how we do things on the site. Right after the picks made, we have a write-up, obviously, on the selection. Then we bump up if there's a draft profile on them to the top of the board. And the press conferences that follow, we cover those right away. And it's going to, starting, Thursday night, obviously, it's going to be a whirlwind. And we'll have Alex and I will be recapping what Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin say after they're done on a podcast on Tuesday. On Wednesday morning, we'll have the last final podcast before the draft. I think, Friday morning, we'll have something about 20, 30 minutes on the draft pick and looking ahead to day 2. And it's going to be a whirlwind thing. And we hope as many of you as possible can join us throughout this, and make sure you get Alex showed you the link to the contest. It doesn't cost anything to enter, so make sure you get involved in that. And all else I can say is thank you very much for showing up tonight, and peace and love, everybody. Appreciate having you. We'll
have a lot of podcasts. We'll be recapping after every single day of the draft. We'll recap the Tomlin Khan presser Tuesday, as Dave said, and so we got you guys covered. So thank you so much for hanging out with Dave and I tonight, this last Monday before the 2025 NFL Draft. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the site, SteelersDepot.com. Thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.